like.
Hey everyone, welcome back for another video. I just want to take a minute to talk a little bit about what this video is going to be about before I get right to it. This is the third video I think I've made in this series about me coming out, and this is basically my coming out story. Well, at least part one of it. I wanted to, sort of do this all in one video, but as I've been putting this together, it got really, really huge. And while my life may be interesting to some people, it is not feature movie length long interesting. So I've had to cut a bunch of things down and kind of simplify some things. One of the virtues of being so well lived, I guess, or maybe it's the fact I'm, my age or whatever. Who knows? But this video is going to be basically about sort of kind of how I got to the place I haven't. But before I get there, I just want to thank everyone who's been really supportive and been really awesome. Obviously, I've got a previous video, which I'll link in the description down below. That sort of is my sort of announcement. And normally you do this video sort of after that video is. Usually you don't make a video that's coming out. It's kind of weird. Lots of different ways to approach it. So I just did the coming out announcement first because it made things a lot easier for me to then make my life changes that I needed to make and get people all on the same page with me. And as I said, everyone's been great. It's been amazing. If I had only known it would be that easy to have everything go, I would have done it a lot earlier in my life probably. Although I did try to do it earlier. You'll find out later in the rest of this video. But the important thing is that it's been just absolutely fantastic. You can watch my other video if you're more interested in that. Although this one. So this video is I'm just going to cover sort of the history and kind of how I came out and kind of where I came from and all that. Something really happened that allowed me to sort of see myself in a complete way, and that is basically what I'm going to say for the next video because it's a bit more detailed, and I'd like to talk about it in the space that it deserves to be talked about because it was really quite transformative, and I want to make sure everyone gets a chance to hear that whole story. Hey everybody, it's me. My name's Tony, in case you didn't get that in the last video, or you don't know me, or you're just finding this video on YouTube, who knows. This is basically going to be my coming out story. And as you can tell, I'm not a, person fresh out of high school, or, even a young adult even, actually. I guess officially they would say I was middle-aged, although I really feel like I'm 28, so I don't know. Who knows? But this has actually been a very difficult video to make. I thought the first video was even harder, but it was harder more emotionally to actually make because once I made that other video, oh, by the way, if you haven't watched that other video, this is probably not going to make any sense. The link to the other video is down below there. Feel free to go check out video 1 and video 2 to see kind of what I'm talking about. But I've been working on this video literally since the second that I uploaded the other video. And by working on it, I mean I've been thinking about it and contemplating what I was going to say and how I was going to say it. And there were a few parts of this video that were very difficult to kind of put together in terms of what I want to say. And to be honest with you, I'm just recording this. I have no idea what this is going to look like when I'm done. I'm going to try not to do any video editing because, quite honestly, I hate it. Maybe I need to hire or find a volunteer or something. I don't know. Video editing is my least favorite thing in the world to do so far. Maybe I'll love it one of these days, but today is not the day. So I tend to kind of do these videos just right off the cuff, straight off my heart, so to speak, and go with them. This video is sort of in the middle of June, so we're kind of in the middle of Pride Month, so what a great time to kind of do this video. My other video I put out about 2 weeks ago or so, and everyone has been just so amazingly supportive. I've had people come up to me and send me messages and stuff, and even a couple of people have asked some really good questions, and I'm going to try to answer some of those in this video. But I just want to thank everybody who's been so supportive, and it's been just really, really amazing. And not that I was expecting to have any bad reactions. In fact, quite the opposite. People have just been amazing, and it's just really kind of freed me in a way I would have even thought possible. But we're going to talk more about that in this video as I go on. And so that was one part of the video is that I have a lot to say in this video, and part of the problem is that this video is really kind of got a couple different parts to it. I mean, we've got the sort of, And I've watched a bunch of these videos, and by a bunch, I mean I've watched probably 40 or 50 coming out videos, maybe even more than that. And most of them are being filmed by, young people, fresh out of high school, or maybe even some of them are in high school, or they're from very difficult backgrounds, like, religious backgrounds, or, and a lot of them are done live, hey, I'm coming out to my parent, let me watch this video. And, I didn't want to really do that just because, well, one, I didn't think my parents would be so cool about that. And two, I just, as an older adult, kind of like, to a point where, I've been living on my own for a long time now. And, I didn't really have a lot of those challenges personally, but I had other challenges that were, my own challenges. And they were even more difficult in many ways, which we're going to, expand upon here in this video. So, and so I've looked at a lot of what these videos covered, and there's a few things that people covered that were pretty consistent. But a lot of them, they have a very short history, like 4 years of, well, I noticed this when I was in blah, blah, blah grade, and then, and then the whole video only takes a minute. If I were to go and really talk about all of the history that I've got going on, I mean, I'm 48 years old, in case you didn't catch the first video and you don't know how old I am, at least at the make this video. So, I've got 34, 35 years, maybe more than that, of, history with dealing with my identity. So I really don't want to make a video outlining all those little details and bits, because quite honestly, it's not really that relevant. I mean, it is in a general sense relevant, but I don't need to get into the details because it's just not that important to the message of what this video is about. And this video is basically just trying to paint a picture for those folks that don't understand what it was like before and maybe didn't know what happened or why I went through this transition, because believe it or not, I was the first person to be surprised by the transition, and I've been living with this sort of thing all my whole life. In case, just to do a quick summary here, my name's Tony, by the way, and in case you missed it, I came out in a previous video, once again, as pansexual, which is a bit complicated to explain, but basically the short version is I like people, I'm attracted to people, both men and women, and I like trans people, and I like, all sorts of different things like that. So, that's in a nutshell kind of what this is about. So, and the other part of this video that's difficult is, so I'm talking to a bunch of different people, audience-wise. I mean, we've got my friends that want to know kind of like, what did I do to go through this transformation? And I want to share that part of it as well. But then we've also got people that are, that are maybe might identify with being stuck in the closet, so to speak, which is where I was. And which is ironic because I'm filming this sort of in a closet. It's funny how that works out sometimes. But the point is that, and so there's that audience, but then there's also people that may be stuck in a closet that are looking for some inspiration, and I've watched a ton of these videos, as I said a minute ago, and I got a lot of inspiration out of them. They were all very inspiring, and each one of them offered a little something different. Some of them were, an idea of, wow, I never realized that's what I was feeling, because they explained in a way that allowed me to understand kind of what I was thinking because I didn't necessarily understand what I was feeling either. And, and that's the thing I've learned in the past month or so since the thing that blew up my life, which, as I said, we're going to talk about in this video, happened. I'm discovering feelings. I didn't even know I had feelings, because I kind of fancied myself as a Vulcan, sort of free of feelings, really, very logical and cerebral, and that sort of kind of blew up in my face, so to speak, in a very powerful and wonderful way, which, as I said, we're covering that here just in a second. So if you can make it through all this boring preamble here, then you'll get to see all that. And then the other thing about this video is that, is that I want to be talking about some stuff that is sort of, deeply personal, that there may be people that know me very well or think they know me very well that may not have a clue as to what was going on in sort of my mental process, if you will, or my emotional process, whatever level that you're looking at. And then the other thing is that, in a way, a lot of what I'm talking about is a completely different person than I am today. I mean, I'm literally not the same person I was. I went through a big, huge sort of personal catharsis transformation experience, and not only once, but I've done it twice in the last year, or done it in two different ways. So I'm really just not even in the same place. And so talking about some of these things is kind of like sort of talking about, it's like describing a scene in a movie that, you know, is about someone else's life, and it's kind of like, well, how do you describe that? But yet at the same time, it's very visceral and very, very deeply personal for me. So you just have to bear with me. So I'm just going to kind of go through and talk about some highlights, because quite honestly, as I said, I have a lot of history, and I don't really want to go through a moment by moment. First there was this, and then there was that, because it's a lot of stuff that would take forever to go out, and plus there are people that I may mention by, not by name of course, but may know who they are, and they may not want to be exposed in that way. So I'm just going to kind of start off with the big question that everybody sort of always asks or answers in this video is, when did I know that I was different? I mean, how did that come about? Well, you know what? I'm not any different than most of the other videos I watched. I've actually always felt I was different. Couldn't quantify it, of course, when I was, you know, before a teenager. I didn't know what I was different, and I even had a girlfriend when I was in kindergarten. So I mean, I kind of went through some of the normal things that you know, most kids do. Even though I knew I was different on some level, I didn't know what it was, of course, back then. And then, you know, I got into, you know, sort of middle school. So we're talking about what, 13, 14, you know, like, you know, teen years, when most everyone sort of starts kind of going through puberty and whatnot. And, you know, most, you know, right, you know, the sort of the normal, if you, not normal is not the right word, the sort of the expected path for the average person is that they, you know, men discover, you know, girls, and girls discover boys and whatnot. And that just really didn't happen for me at all. I felt comfortable talking to women. I felt comfortable talking to men. I didn't really have a sexual attraction to either one of them. That being said, I did play around with someone who lived in the neighborhood, and although it wasn't a sexual experience for me, my mind wasn't in that space. I didn't know what that meant. And it was, anyway, it doesn't really matter. It's just, but I had some experiences there that kind of, you know, shaped a little bit of what I was looking at. But it was very innocent, and if you can consider two, you know, 12-year-olds or two 11-year-olds being innocent of anything. But anyway, that's a different story. So I had some experiences there that I was exploring things, but I didn't know what I was exploring or why I was exploring it. But that kind of just went away sort of right about the time I got into high school. And the big moment, that I noticed something was definitely different with me, was when all of my you know, friends in high school, you know, my guy friends, I wasn't dating anybody, but they were just friends, you know, like your regular hangout, you know, high school buddies, and they were all getting interested in women. And by getting interested in women, I mean, they were vulgar. I mean, and that was the thing I remember most, was like, you know, they would do things like, you know, go out of the way to go down this other block and this other street just so might see this one girl that they thought was hot, that had developed the, you know, what, you know, you got the idea. And behaving in like ways that I actually was quite offended by, honestly. But the thing is that I could tell that they were being motivated by sort of a deeper sort of impulse, and I didn't have that impulse at all. And this is despite the fact that, you know, when I was in high school, we had the Playboy channel. I was allowed to watch rated R movies. I was not restricted in any kind of reading material that I wanted, except for the library did deny me a book, which I later read, but that's another story for a totally different video. Once, but basically, you know, and my parents were like, you know, birds and the bees, you know, great talk about how that stuff worked, and they also, you know, gave me literally, I kid you not, probably 4 or 5 books on like female and male anatomy, how everything worked. I could ask any questions. I mean, so I knew everything. I mean, like intellectually, I mean, I knew everything. So I knew how everything was going to work. And so, I'd read about the sort of the stages that people go through. And I was looking at my friends going, well, that makes sense. Duh. You know, teenage boys, whatever. But I didn't really feel any of that. Didn't really. And honestly, high school was great for me. I mean, I know a lot of kids, you know, go into high school and they feel a lot of pressure and peer pressure and stuff. And, you know, I really didn't have any of that emotional stuff. I mean, I definitely... You know, I definitely did not feel motivated to, like, you know, date people or find a girlfriend. The only time that really became an issue for me was when, like, we were doing a dance. dance or prom or whatever, because I didn't know how to ask anybody out. And, and I did go to prom. I didn't really go to the dances because I wasn't really into it. Primarily, probably because I was sort of in denial of some of my feelings, or they hadn't developed yet. Maybe I just went through puberty late. Who knows? I know that's not true physically, of course, but because I remember, quite honestly, all the things that were supposed to be happening at the normal ages were all happening fine. But I just didn't really tap into that sort of level, and I know why. And I mean, now I know why. I didn't know then, of course, but I did have moments when things would happen, where I was at a baseball game and I noticed that I really liked the way the baseball people looked, so things like that. So, but the problem is that the world was very, very different. I mean, we're talking about circa 85, somewhere around there, and it's been, it's back then. I mean, there was no internet. Okay, there was no YouPorn or any of those kinds of things. I mean, in fact, I'm not even really sure you could even get mail. I guess Playgirl existed or whatever. I don't even know what the magazines were back then. So, it wasn't something that people really got in. It wasn't like now. There weren't as many resources. And also, circa 80s, I mean, let's face it, there was a big AIDS epidemic as well. And in our high school, there were no gay people. Which, of course, is funny. It's actually not true at all, because I have people on my friends list in Facebook now that I went to school with that I know are gay because they are out and married, actually, and things like that. So obviously there were gay people, but I didn't know who they were. I didn't understand that at all. There were certainly no resources. And quite honestly, there was quite a bit of a societal thing. So here I'm having these feelings that I can't quantify, that, don't match what my friends' experiences are. I'm not really interested in dating anyway. So where are you there? What do you do then? I mean, I just continued studying and stuff. I was perfectly fine. I wasn't unhappy. I wasn't missing anybody. But then eventually, I graduated from college, and, I went to a college out of city for a little bit, sort of alone, because I didn't really know anybody. I didn't go with many of my friends. So, and I was staying in a kind of an apartment scenario up there, so I didn't really get the, quote, college experience. But I came back to UC, and then I was in UC for a minute, and I got involved in a fraternity. And that is when I really knew something I was starting to have some more like, wait a second, all my people I know are looking for girlfriends or having girlfriends, and I'm not having any girlfriends. And I wanted to have a girlfriend, obviously, because that is what men did, despite the fact I had these other feelings that I didn't know what they were about, so at the time. So, I was looking for a girlfriend. And right around the same time period, and keep in mind this has been a long time ago, so some of these dates, I'm not going to get dates, it's not important. Before this, I had actually had remember the girlfriend I mentioned back in kindergarten? Well, we had a little fling for a minute. And that, I don't want to call it a fling, it was more than that at the time, but we had an intimate relationship for a period of time. A couple, she came up because she had moved to Florida, and then we had a thing, and then she moved back to Florida for a minute and then came back, and so we had some intimate encounters. Actually, my first intimate encounter. And I remember at the time thinking, yay, finally, now I can be normal. Which, of course, didn't really work out that way, but that's another story. So, but it was great, and everything was amazing. And we reached a point where we just kind of figured out, the two of us figured out that it just wasn't where we wanted to go with, with our relationship or our friends. And so we were friends then, and we are still friends today, actually. In fact, I'm sure she will probably watch this video. I'm not going to give her a name because it's not important. But still there, friend, and actually an ally as well. So to this day, still. So then I started looking for girlfriends, and that's it. Then I got the fraternity scenario, and and I met some new friends, and whatnot, and one of the things that I hadn't really talked about yet, but it's a good time to throw that in, is I've always been interested in spiritual things, crystals and tarot cards and Wicca and Native American spirituality and all these sorts of things. And as I said, I had access, before the internet, so sorry I'm dating myself, but I had a whole set of World Book encyclopedias when I was in high school and even younger, and I read every single one of them. I mean, literally I read an entire encyclopedia set cover to cover. So if you ever wonder why I know a bunch of useless information sometimes, that's why. So I read the whole thing. So I was very interested in that kind of stuff. And that didn't change. So I had been dabbling in various different kinds of things like this for many, many years. So keep in mind, I have a very strong spiritual, leaning in terms of my practices, and that's some of the things that have led to the transformation that I'm talking about as we speak. So that just gives you a little background of kind of where this was. So anyway, so I developed a really good friend, actually one of the members of the fraternity, ironically enough, and we had to be really good friends, and this is the first time actually that I ever came out, ironically. This is like, 1992, 91, 92. I mean, I was like 22 years old. I mean, so this is like literally half my life ago, actually. And I remember we were out, we had just gone on, done some clubbing, college kids at the bar thing. And my friend, and I've been having some personal issues at this time where I wasn't having any luck meeting women at this point, and I was wondering if there was a reason for that, because I didn't think I was ugly, and I had a nice personality, and I did all the things that people should do to meet people. So I didn't necessarily know, unless, of course, if I wasn't trying to, was looking on the wrong side of the fence, so to speak. Didn't matter. So that was what was weighing in my head at the time. And then we'd gone out and danced and had some fun and, hit on, well, I wasn't really, maybe that was the problem. I wasn't hitting on women, who knows. But anyway, and we're walking back, and my friend at the time, he goes, wow, do you know, have you ever been walking, in a club or something, and you look at somebody and you think, wow, damn, they look hot, or something like that. And then all of a sudden they turn around and they're a guy. And now what he meant was, of course, obviously, was the mistaking a guy for a girl. But that's not what I heard at the time. I actually heard something completely different. I actually took that message, my mind was in a space where I took that to mean support for the idea that you could find a guy attractive as well as a woman attractive, which isn't actually what they meant at the time, but it doesn't really matter anyway. But I used that opportunity to then begin a conversation about why I was having trouble meeting women, or why I was having trouble meeting people. And it was really funny because we're going on this conversation, and about halfway through this sort of life story of all the feelings that I had no idea how to describe or what I was doing, I noticed that they were getting a little, impatient. It's not that they were uncomfortable. I just kind of felt like they were impatient. And I didn't know what that was coming from, which, of course, didn't actually help me feel secure in that scenario. But I just kept going anyway because, well, some of you know me, but not everybody here knows me. I can talk, really, quite a lot. And I've gotten better about it over the years, but I can definitely talk if I need to. So, and I was in this case. So it's kind of like diarrhea of the mouth, really. It's kind of kept coming out. But anyway, and then we go through this whole spiel, and eventually he's waiting for something. I don't know what he's waiting for, and eventually I kind of blurt out, and and I guess the problem is I just don't really know. Should I be looking for men or women or what the hell? I don't know. And then at that point he's kind of like, oh, I see what the problem is. I don't know exactly what his mindset was, but he was really trying to figure out what the issue was. And that was like a really kind of an intimate moment in a sense. And I don't mean that we were intimate, because we have a very good friendship, and that's not the kind of friendship we have, but we're just really, really good buds. But anyway, but he basically realized what the issue was, and he basically kind of went, oh, well, that's cool. Like, it was no big deal at all to him. And ironically enough, that same evening, a little bit later, I ended up meeting up with my old, I'm going to use the word girlfriend here. Hope that's all right with you, Miss Girlfriend. You know who you are. Because you were an old girlfriend at the time. So anyway, met up with her, and then I basically had to sort of do the story all over again. Luckily, I had a chance to condense it. So anyway, so we had the story, and she was also like, oh, yeah, whatever. Like, no one really gave a flying care about it, which was, in a way, kind of a telling thing, because that's exactly what happened this time when I came out. It was pretty much everyone's like, yeah, great, that's next, let's go on. But to me was very relieving, but I still didn't know how to resolve these feelings, because I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't like them. I mean, it's really quite simple. Society made it pretty clear that being gay, which is basically what I was looking at that point, is not okay. It was very clear. I mean, yes, there were gay people, but there wasn't any like Gay Pride Month. There wasn't any gay pride flags everywhere. I mean, I'm sure there probably was. I mean, there were gay bars, of course, and all that kind of stuff. But these were resources that I knew nothing about, despite the fact that I actually later became a TA for the human sexuality class and helped to actually talk about all these kinds of things. But still, though, for me, they didn't apply. Yeah, which is ironic, which is weird and sort of silly, honestly, because here I am, secretly liking men, but it was something I didn't like. And I'm going to be quite clear, I hated it. I mean, I'd had sex with a woman, that was great. I'd never had sex really with a man at this point, so I was perfectly happy to continue to be straight. But not really, obviously, because I had all these feelings. And so I basically just sort of didn't have any idea how to really address these feelings, so I just kind of said, no, these aren't real, and just sort of let them go. I mean, I wasn't really having strong feelings anyway, because I'm a very cerebral person. Not so much anymore, but I was then. And so it was very easy to just not have feelings very much, because I was just not really into it anyway. I mean, yeah, sure, I wanted it, because, wanted to have intimate relationships, because that's what people do when you're in that age bracket, and obviously, but I wasn't really motivated to have a relationship or date, although I did end up actually dating someone. And, she really actually had really, really, really deep feelings for her. I didn't quite understand it at the time. It's the virtues of being young. Lots of things happen to you sometimes, and then it's not until 30 years later you look back and go, holy how did I miss that? It's like that happened. So, and we dated for, I don't know, maybe 3, 4, 5 months, and ultimately we ended up breaking up because there was a trust issue, which I don't need to get into details, doesn't really matter. But we had an intimate relationship, both physical and emotionally, and, it was a girlfriend in every real sense of the word. So here I am again, having these feelings going, oops, well, I guess maybe I'm really not that way after all. I don't like it anyway, so it's very easy for me to dismiss it again. And there's a really good word for that. It's called denial. But in my case, it was even worse than that. I compartmentalized it completely. I mean, I literally put all these feelings into a box that I didn't like and didn't want, and stuck them over here somewhere. Hid them away. Weren't even a part of my being. Didn't matter. Because I had a girlfriend. So it's easy to just forget all about that. But it doesn't really work that way. And I can tell you, luckily for me, being a very cerebral person, I was able to make it work for a very long time. But I know now, from having watched many videos, as well as looking at how that affected me once I went through this big shift I'm going to talk about here in just a bit, I can tell you that that's not a good thing to do. And most people don't get the luxury of being able to do it as easily as I did, because they're not cerebral. They're heart-based or emotionally based or whatever. And they don't have the spiritual background that I had, because I was able to, take a lot of these feelings and move that inner, I don't know, this may sound really weird if you have no idea what I'm talking about, but when you do enough spiritual work, I mean, think about a clergy person, right? I mean, they basically take a vow of celibacy a lot of times, and they do this for years, yet somehow they manage to make that work. Well, it's the same thing here. It's just a different aspect of it. So, so I'm spiritual and, looking at these things, and so I'm kind of redirecting those energies, if you will, into other directions, things like that. So, but the biggest thing that happened there was that she really did break my heart. I didn't realize it then. My first real emotional connection with someone, first real intimacy with someone. I mean, not the first intimacy. I mean, I've had intimacy with somebody else, but this was a much longer, more seriously sort of being in love kind of thing. And then basically it obviously ended, mostly because of, as I said, it was a trust issue and kind of a complicated scenario. And, that was that. So, and then I got, shortly thereafter, I got hooked up with a local spiritual community, and got introduced to some actual gay people, and talked with them, and I was kind of out, and I was working in a nightclub, and it was kind of like a big rave that sort of someone set up, and then no one took it down, and it was a very open group, and and here you would think I would have the ability to basically be out, and I kind of was out, at that time, but the thing is, it didn't take. That's the best way to describe it. It's like, I tried to be out, but it didn't work. And the reason why it didn't work is because I did not like those feelings. They were not acceptable to me as an individual. I wasn't accepting that part of me. It didn't matter that the outside world would probably been like, yeah, great, come on over. But I even went to the gay bars. Never once got hit on. I'm sure that's not true, of course, but my brain didn't see that, and I got warned, oh no, if you go to the gay bar, everyone's going to hit on you and you have to fight them off, and I'm just like, well, okay, that just never happened to me. I never felt connected with the community at the time. And it was much a bigger community, actually, in many ways than it is now. A bit more closeted, because Cincinnati is a weird town. That's where I'm from, by the way, in case you didn't know that. Cincinnati is, it's a weird town because when you get into the LGBTQI community, whatever the letters are these days, it's kind of either an all or nothing kind of prospect. You're either like out there in such a flamboyant like way that it's everywhere, or you're out to yourself but no one else knows, and but yet you would go to these places like bars or apps or whatever. Well, apps now, but apps didn't exist back then. So I don't know. So I never connected with the community at all, and so it didn't matter. I didn't connect. I tried. I tried. Talking to my, and of course I want to thank the, my friend there. I'd give his name out, but he's passed on now, and I don't really want to, as I said, I'm trying to keep these videos somewhat nameless because I do not have permission necessarily from all these individuals to put them out in a public way, and I don't want to do that. But he was very, very instrumental in sort of talking to me about some of these things and kind of helped me to at least understand what is possible in that world, and actually he's kind of responsible for kind of some of my, not him personally, but by introduction, getting me involved with some of my first experiences. And up until this month, keep in mind, up to this point, I had not had an intimate male experience yet. So here I have all these feelings, but they're completely amorphous and undefined, really. And then I did have an experience, and wow, I remember that experience very well. And I often joke about not understanding anxiety because it's something I just really have never really had a feeling for personally. Don't be wrong, I've done things where I've been nervous, but if you logically looked at a situation like, you're going to do a public speech in front of 500 people, ooh, yes, I might be a little nervous doing that. But that's not anxiety, that's nervous. So, but then this experience that I had during that first encounter is probably the closest thing that I've ever experienced to like a true sort of panic attack, ironically. Sounds like a very strange thing to have. While we're talking about an intimate moment. But I remember the experience very well because, well, first of all, it was good. It felt fine, obviously, physically. As things in the bedroom do typically, unless there's something really horribly wrong. But generally, they feel good physically, and this did too. Except for emotionally, it was the most wonderful and horrible thing at the exact same moment. I was both thrilled and horrified at the same time. I was both ecstatic and ready to throw up everywhere. I'm not exaggerating that experience. I nearly did that. I wanted to say, wow, this is the greatest thing ever, and I wanted to basically, run out of the room screaming at the same time. Now, luckily, I didn't do any of those things because intellectually I was able to go, holy Hannah, what the heck? This is a physical thing. It felt great. Anything that feels good, that doesn't hurt another person, is ultimately okay, right? Intellectually, I was able to rationalize that experience. Now, what was all that I was feeling? Well, I can tell you what all that was. All that negative crap that I was feeling at that moment, that was society. That was conditioning that was imposed upon me, not on purpose, of course, but just to the nature of reality. It's not okay for guys to like guys, right? It's not okay for a guy to have a great experience with another guy. Yet I seemingly did at that moment. And but that still is very descriptive of how I felt about the whole thing. So once again, compartmentalized that, had a great experience, it was an okay experience, honestly, but from a first standpoint experience, it was a good one. But I had that experience, put it away, put it in a little box, and once again, put it away. And then at this point, by this time, we've got outlets like porn and internet and books and other sources to kind of explore that. And being active in the local, spiritual community, I got, still got a chance to go to some festivals and whatnot. And there's one particular festival place, which I'm not going to refer to its name because there's sort of kind of a rule at the festival that whatever happens at the festival stays at the festival. If you're friends with me, obviously I've been, and so you'll be able to figure this out. But this is not a video that's just my friends. It's going to everybody. So I'm going to respect everyone who I had experiences with or not experiences with or whatever. And I'm just going to refer to it as band camp because a lot of the stories are very much like this one time at band camp. But here's the problem with all those experiences. They were great, first of all, but they were at a place that isn't real. And by isn't real, I mean it's a place that people go to. A lot of times they're on vacation, or a lot of times they have rules that, maybe they're married or not married or in intimate relationships or not, and they could do certain kinds of things at places like this and not places like that, right? So, or whatever. But the rule was it had to stay there. So it's not real. It's kind of like going to a strip club. I mean, you get to see these beautiful naked women, but they're not real. I mean, they're not for you. They might give you an illusion of that for a minute, but ultimately they're not real. And it's the same thing with band camp. So I had a lot of experiences at band camp. But here's the problem once again. Remember what I said about how I felt about these feelings. So I would go to band camp, and I could have fun at band camp because band camp wasn't real. I could pull out my feeling, my it's okay, my male attraction feelings, whatever, and put them out here and open the box up, and it was like a toy box. I could play with it for a minute, and then at the end of the festival or when the experience was over, I could put it back. And well, the problem with that experience is that those experiences, in addition to being at an unreal place, if something unreal can exist, I don't know. But the point is that they weren't, the intimacy was lacking there. And many of my early experiences, and I've had a few, they all sucked really. And I pardon the pun. But they lacked this level of intimacy. I mean, yes, they were physically gratifying in a way, but the problem with that is basically what created the issue. So I didn't have good experiences from an intimate connection standpoint. And I didn't realize that was important, of course, until relatively recently. It doesn't really matter anyway. But it only reinforced this is evil, this is bad, I don't like this box. Even though I was with people who were totally into it, obviously. And I was totally into it. Some of them were more into it than others. I had a lot of, let's try this and see if it feels good. Ooh, well, I didn't really like it either. Okay, I didn't, so like it wasn't, people weren't into it. But that being said, I had several experiences at band camp with two different people in specific, well, three actually, now that I think about it, where that was not the case. It was a situation where I was able to let go. They were willing to accept that, and they were willing to let go, and it was really deep and amazing, really, in those moments. But once again, it's a band camp. It's not real. I can't follow that up. So in my brain, it's just kind of like, okay, well, I guess I guess the box can work okay. But for years, it didn't matter. So then eventually I got a little bit more isolated because I ended up moving out into the farm country. And the nightclub that I've been working at sort of closed. And I think that's kind of why I sort of never really came out like in a public way, was because all my experiences were at band camp. So in case you're just tuning in, band camp is a metaphor for a spiritual retreat place. That's not its real name, but it just sounds more fun when I say at band camp. So, because anyway, I guess you have to see the movies to know why that's funny, but hopefully you all have seen the American Pie movies. But anyway, so it was very easy for me to basically do that. And once I got isolated in the nightclub that I used to do tarot readings at, and was sort of very hippie and eclectic and open to all this stuff, I kind of was isolated from that. And then all my only experiences I ever seemed to have were at band camp. They were never in the quote real world. So it just continued to reinforce this thing. And then eventually, the funny thing about the human brain is that it is great at habitualizing. In fact, that's really a defense mechanism. Your brain will set your dial, so to speak, at what is common for you. And there's a reason for that. And that's because it keeps us safe. I mean, if you're walking in the woods and every single little sound, you were to hear, you'd be freaking out all day long. I mean, there's squirrels and roots and trees and, so eventually your brain just kind of goes, okay, here's a certain amount of background noise. We're just going to set our dial right here, and if something's above this level, then we'll pay attention. It's like everything's green, so you don't really pay attention to green anymore because it's everywhere. But then, something is black, you're like, oh crap, what is that? And then that's what happens. So, well, your brain does the same thing with emotions. So here I am, I'm not dating people, I don't know how to meet people, and all the people I've been with were essentially not real. I mean, they were real, obviously, but you know what I mean. They weren't real in the sense that I could bring them home or whatever, and here I am. What do you do? So eventually, plus I'm not really interested in dating, honestly. I mean, my brain is not like, I'm not emotionally looking for a partner because I feel quite complete. And I felt that way for a number of years. of course, and it was fine. And to be honest with you, I was perfectly fine with all that. And I was not sad. I was not lonely. I was not looking for any of that. I was perfectly happy with that. But because, I have the luxury of liking women, and, there are a couple other girlfriends in this time frame as well. Never had any boyfriends. So once again, because remember, compartmentalized, not liking these feelings, don't want to acknowledge them. Want to have them, but not really. It's kind of like, it's hard to really, and I'm going to take a minute to talk about this just because I think it's important. I am talking as if these are no big deal. And that is because that's how I feel about it now. That is not how I felt about it a month ago. Okay? So I really want to take a second to talk about the reality of these feelings. I hated, and that's the word I want to use here, a large chunk of who I am. I mean, I completely loathed it. I mean, I hated it. I wanted to change. I tried to pray it away. I tried to spiritualize it away. And I didn't talk about that yet at this point in this video because how do you really talk about something that most people have no idea about that? I mean, it's not like, oh, I was short, I'd like to be tall. No, this is like, if I could have chopped it all off, I would have. But luckily, I'm more intellectual, and I know that you can't just chop away a piece of yourself. But you know what? You can hide it. You can't deny it. And for a lot of people, that is actually a much bigger deal, and it ends up being a big problem for them because they end up, with depressive feelings. They end up with self-esteem issues. And, well, I luckily am, I don't know, maybe I'm insane. Who knows? But self-esteem's never been a problem of mine. I mean, granted, sometimes I don't necessarily feel as secure as other people, and if I'm in the wrong sort of places, I might feel. But here's the thing. I've never felt like I belonged anywhere. Ever. Even when I was at band camp, everyone's like, oh, we love you. And I was like, nah, I didn't feel like I belonged there. I've never felt like I belonged. And the reason why is because 90% of the best part of me, I was keeping hidden from everybody. Even when I was exploring, even when I was playing with my box of toys, so to speak, I was still keeping it a secret from everybody. I wasn't embracing it. I was playing with it. It's a very different scenario, and we're going to talk a little bit more of that in a minute here. But the point that I'm making is that these feelings are real, and it is hard. I mean, it is not. I mean, I'm making it sound very easy, and that's because I'm very calm about it, because I went through a transformation. I look back at it and just think, wow, that's just really stupid. I can't believe I did that. But at the time, it all made perfect sense. And I know there are people out there that are probably doing exactly the same thing I did. I hope that this video inspires you to recognize that denial of one's being is never going to work out. It just doesn't work out, because until you can truly embrace all of you, no one else will either. I mean, it's really, I know it sounds very cliche, but it's very true. The truth is that no one is going to accept you if you can't accept you. And you're going to feel that when you're walking around in society. I did. I thought it was, I just don't fit in. I'm an alien, or I'm a whatever, or however you want to rationalize that in your brain. But people don't feel like they're connected. I felt like I was an outcast everywhere I went. Now, granted, it didn't bother me because it was just part of my mythology. Oh, I'm an outcast. Great. Now I can be a shaman because shamans are outcast, or now I can be a witch, or now I can be a monk, or I can be a whatever, because it didn't matter, because, the outcast became a part of the persona, if you will. Bullshit, just so you know, but that's how I thought about it in a way. And, but yet still this is there, and it was like a little box I'd play with, and, it worked great, but it didn't make me feel connected. And of course, I had no problems with my self-esteem because I guess I'm pretty brilliant at creating a persona that can hide this little bit and just keep it over there. But it doesn't really matter. I was happy. I mean, I wasn't dating people. I didn't care. I wasn't looking to date people, and I was perfectly happy with that. In fact, I'd pretty much come to the conclusion that dating was silly anyway, because everyone I knew that dated people ended up getting broken up or divorced or whatever. Now, that being said, my parents are together. They've been together for 49 years, I think, just this year. It's 49, so that's pretty good. So my brother is married. He's got kids. So I've got plenty of examples of great relationships that people have. So, I believe in love, although I didn't really believe in love until a month ago. That's a different story, which we're telling here. So I promise I'll get to that story. But yeah, who knows? Believe in love. But I just didn't believe it was for me. And because I just had this idea that if love was meant to happen, it would just happen. Because I know intellectually, or so I was told, that or believed that you can't find someone until you're completing yourself. And so I thought I was completing myself, and so I was waiting for the to find another complete person. Wasn't missing a soulmate. I wasn't pining away for deep connections with people or anything like that. And I was fine. And I want to be very, very clear. I'm talking about some of these self-loathing feelings and whatnot, but I dealt with those years ago by completely and utterly compartmentalizing them. I'm downplaying some. I don't want to downplay the emotional stuff there. But that was 10, 15 years ago. I mean, 10 years ago. I've since just, once I got isolated and wasn't really active in the dating world, it didn't matter. I mean, I had a job, I was busy, I worked, I saw people all night long, I got to flirt or get flirted with or whatever, it's fine. I never really had any desire for, once again, no desire for deeper relationships. It didn't matter. I was perfectly content. And I really want to be clear about that. I was perfectly fine. Well, if you got this far, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a little challenging to make, only because, a lot of these things are somewhat surrealistic at this point, because I'm really just a different person than I was when I was describing a lot of those events. I mean, I look back at those things that I was talking about, and it's almost kind of like, who was that guy? Or whatever. So, yeah. I'm going to leave this video here because it's gotten way too long as it is, and this is a good stopping point. We're at a point where we're up to sort of modern times, if you will, and then about a month ago, something really, really transformative happened that sort of brought me to a place where I had no choice but to come out, and I am just thrilled with all the things that have happened since then. So. And I've been very happy with that. And I'm going to talk more about that, some of those other things in another video. So I just want to take a moment to say thank you. If you want to see more, you can like this video. If you want to see more, you can subscribe to this video. I encourage you to comment, ask any questions you have. As I said, I'm going to share the more details of what transformed me and how I was transformed and what brought me to want to come out later. Aside from that, it was just time. And I'm going to talk a bit more about some of those concepts in the next video. So like, subscribe, comment, and I look forward to seeing you all again. And just want to thank everyone for the support that has been on there and all the great comments and all the great questions. It's Pride Month, so, it's a great time to be making videos like this, and it's also a great time to, really feel the love, so to speak, from lots of people, even people that you wouldn't necessarily think would be there for you. So, y'all have a great day, be blessed, and be complete.